Got a great panel now. We're talking about National Football League royalty. We're talking about some of the best corners to ever play the game, and they were homegrown at an HBCU. We got Everson Walls, yes, from the
Yes, you do.
Cowboys. Won a
Yes, you
Super
do.
Bowl with the Giants. I don't know how that happened. How you go from the Giants to the Cowboys, Everson?
I had to go where I was needed. When you have Lawrence Taylor on the front line, I want to play defense behind Lawrence Taylor's front line. That's what I wanted to do.
That makes a
And
lot of sense, my
there you
friend.
go, baby.
And then we got the two-time Super Bowl champ from the New England Patriots, played up in Boston. That means Ty Poole, he can park the car. He can go to Harvard Yard. He can head over to Fenway Park. And he really wants to hang out. He can go out to Dorchester. Right, Ty? Is that
There
right?
you go. There you go, Larry. Hey, I just want to thank God for this opportunity, man. And I got to say this now, Everson, follow his career, man. Every time when I talk to Everson and just be in his presence, man, I just got to thank him. I bow down to him, man. He's one of the guys that I looked up
OG.
to him. There you go, man. OG
Yeah,
for
yeah.
real.
But you
But
have more Super Bowl trophies. So
Ty,
who's
are those
got
real? Tell us
who?
about those. Where'd you get those? Did you take those from Kraft?
yeah, you know what? I should have, but no, those are the replicas. And if it had not been for those Giants in which Everson played for, then probably we would have eight Super Bowl trophies. But
No, no.
but no,
You're
those are the
welcome.
replicas.
Let me say this. You're welcome for Belichick. Can I say that? You're welcome for Bill
Yeah,
Belichick.
exactly. Great coach.
Guys, you guys are HBCU royalty, your NFL royalty. We'll start with you, Everson. Of course, we know about your, very good career with the Cowboys and Giants, coming from Grambling. Just talk about playing in HBCU and how impactful that was for you, and what you can, what you sort of learned from that, and how, it's sort of shaped your life.
Oh, there's no doubt it shaped my life for real. I wouldn't. I don't think I'd be able to talk to you right now if it wasn't for Grambling State. Had a decent upbringing, but Coach Robinson's words were always a reiteration of what my parents had always taught me. Parents, grandparents, the whole neighborhood that I grew up in Hamilton Park, here in Dallas, Texas. It was all about an HBCU. It was an all-black neighborhood. All the parents there had gone to HBCUs. So it's really what I was accustomed to. But at the same time, when I got to Grambling, I was pleasantly surprised at just how influential Coach Robinson was going to be for me. He was the best. Let's just be real. It wasn't just a good coach, but he was an orator. He could speak on so many different topics, and they all touched a young man's heart. And I think that's the main thing that mattered at that time. He understood how to talk to young men to where we had a lot of pride in ourselves. And we knew that by the time we left Grambling, we'd have all the tools to make it. That was his goal. And I truly believe he succeeded in most of those efforts.
For a while, of course, the great Eddie Robinson was the all-time winningest coach in college football history until Joe Pa passed him, about a decade or so ago. Ty Poole, Fort Valley State,
Yeah.
FVSU, stand up, baby. How impressive was it for you to be at Fort Valley State and some of the lessons that you learned down there in the valley?
Well, one of the things I learned is perfecting my work ethics. I think that is what allowed me. And if you ask anyone from a HBCU, we've learned how to do more with less.
Yeah.
So when you give me an opportunity to work with more, then you just see how much greatness I really have in me. But just going to an HBCU taught me family. And I'll tell people about the instructors. When you go to an HBCU, they really are like your parents. They don't care about what the outside world thinks about you. It's like you didn't do what you were supposed to do in my classroom, and I'm going to give you that bad grade. You're in trouble. So I really had great times and learned great values that actually helped propel me to a lengthy career. And I would tell anyone at HBCU, hey, go to it. It's not where you go, it's what you do where you are. So HBCU is really like family.
Guys, we talked about this before. You look at some of those diamonds in the rough, if you will, at some of these HBCUs, the SWAC, or whether it's the MEAC or the CIAA. How do we get more HBCU talent into the NFL? Because there was a time when there was plenty of talent that went into the National Football League. You look at those great Cowboys teams, the Ed Too Tall Jones and some of those guys. How does that happen? Everson, we'll start with you. How do we get more Gramblin's players or any of these other HBCUs into the National Football League?
Well, it's that's a very difficult question because you can do all you want, and if they don't want to see you, they're not going to see you.
Yeah.
When Doug Williams had finally graduated from Grambling State, he was all the hoopla that any HBCU athlete had ever had. And when he left, it's almost as if the scouts couldn't wait to stop coming to Grambling. It's like, man, I'm so glad Doug is out. Now we don't have to go down there and see any of those guys at these small schools anymore. We don't want to waste our time. And so that's how you end up with a great team like Grambling State University, 1980, go to the 1AA playoffs. And if I'm not mistaken, we only had maybe one guy drafted in the late rounds. You had myself leading the nation in interceptions with 11. I had a strong safety, Robert Salter. He led 8 interceptions 2 years in a row. And both of us signed for free agent contracts with the same Dallas Cowboys team. So when you start just really lumping us all in there, you don't really have a plan for us. You don't even know what we can do because as a scout, you didn't really do your studying. You didn't do your homework because we were secondary to other issues and players that you wanted to deal with. Those are the kind of things that we have problems with. But when you look at guys like Cohen at the Chicago Bears, I believe it was North Carolina Central. I don't want to say his name. I don't want to give him the wrong alumni, but him doing a great job in Chicago. That really kind of shines the light on what we have plenty at HBCUs. All you have to do is just peel back the covers and take a look. So much talent there, not just good talent, but also heads up, smart players that can help your team in so many different ways.
Ty, how important is it that these HBCUs? We talk about funding all the time, whether it's the university or the whole entire college. How do we pick that up and how do we raise the bar there so they can compete with some of these other institutions that we saw this high school basketball player, top 15 recruit, signed at Howard. Maybe do we start seeing some of this homegrown talent go play in the HBCUs? You think that can happen in football? We're starting to see it, a little glimpse of it in the NCAA basketball side.
Yeah, definitely. I think looking at the sports, I think basketball is a sport where you really can allow a HBCU or you can allow a player to play in the HBCU and still be competitive in NBA. I think track and field is one of those sports as well. I consider track and field like math is universal. A 10-1 at Fort Valley State is a 10-1 at the University of Georgia. Football is probably the only sport where I feel like you got to make sure you have all the pieces in play. You got to have good competition, you got to have good coaching, and you got to get exposure. But at the same time, everybody just needs an opportunity. And also, what we need to do with HBCUs, we need to continue to show off our past and present athletes and all those, also those in corporate America. And I'll close with this. In North Carolina State Central University, I think they put a baseball player. He's basically signed with the New York Giants, the San Francisco Giants. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And then you look at Tennessee State. They got a guy down here with the Falcons, wide receiver. And then the Cleveland Browns, I think they got a guy from South Carolina State University. So the athletes are current. We just got to do better as HBCUs and showing the world that we have people that are out there and people who can do it still.
How impactful would it be to have some of these athletes that are, BMOCs, right? Big man on campus at some of these HBCUs, Everson? How can they use their platform to sort of drive voter turnout and get more people to take the process seriously and vote?
I've been seeing it already. You've got young players still playing in the NFL who are really doing a good job of being out there. They're showing up and they're showing out. They're leading some of these protests and they're being very visible. I think it's amazing what they're doing. If they just keep that up, I think that's the way it should go. One thing I like about the energy level that you see out in the streets these days, when you see the peaceful protests, I think it's extremely important that we keep up that same energy and just realize where you are right now, because with this being a turning point in our society like no other time in the history of this world, you have to understand, of course, the responsibility that comes with that. And it's going to move real fast. And that's a credit to these young people. So just be ready for that change and be ready to take the bull by the horns.
Ty, you look at some of these young men out there. How important is it to stress voting and use their platforms, I guess, properly? And use that megaphone or the bully pulpit that they have on social media, and getting other people to follow their lead.
Well, I think when it comes to the voting, a couple of things that I believe we got to make sure we understand. Number one, uh, issue of right. The 26th Amendment, if you're 18 years or older, and also the 15th Amendment, which gives any U.S. citizen the right to vote. And those, is a democracy. And actually, when you don't vote, you actually are giving up the right to actually fix the things that you're complaining about. Yes, it may take time, but continuing to do it and repetitively doing it is like turning dirty water into clean water. You got to continue to pour clean water to turn that dirty water back to where it's supposed to be. And that's what voting does. Continue to vote, continue to put people in position so we can vote for them. But that's how you make change. So that's a right that we all have. And definitely the young people have a bigger voice with social media to keep pushing and change the future.
That's why they call it the franchise. You think about NFL franchises and sports franchises. It's termed that for a reason because it's bigger than the I guess the sum or the whole there. So let me get with you real quickly, Ty. Football question for both of you gentlemen. Cam Newton leaving the Carolina Panthers, one of your old teams, Ty Poole, going
Yes.
to one of your old teams as well, the New England Patriots. How do you like that, Cam, going to New England, replacing Tom Brady? I love it. We've been talking about it for weeks, and hell, it finally happened.
Yeah, I think what happened is with Cam. Cam will have an opportunity to learn more football than he's ever learned during his previous years of playing. I kind of mimicked that with Michael Vick. Michael Vick was here in Atlanta.
Mhm.
Michael Vick probably learned more football when he got with Andy Reid in Philadelphia than he learned in Atlanta. So I think Cam's going to learn a lot of football. I think he's going to give the Patriots an opportunity to have a more athletic Tom Brady. Now, all of this is predicated if Cam comes into New England with his glass empty. If he comes in with his glass already half full, or he's thinking he's still in Carolina, then he won't last long in New England.
I just want to see the side by side photos of Belichick in a cutoff hoodie, and then Cam with the fedora or a kafefe or something. Just all looking like Cam. I just can't wait to see that contrast. Everson, to you real quickly. You played in the NFC East, Cowboys, Giants, the other team, one of the other teams in that division, the Redskins. Your thoughts on Dan Snyder and the Redskins giving up on this name, and we're seeing some other names, maybe Red Tails, Warriors. Your thoughts on the Redskins finally giving up on this name, which is considered a slur to many people.
Yeah, yeah. The one thing that causes change. I mean, we've been out here bitching for a long time. We've been fighting for our rights. We've been speaking up for decades, if not centuries. Let's just be real about it. The change that you have right now is that white people have come along and they have spoken up on issues that have been uncomfortable for them. But now they feel like they can come out and finally say what they feel. We have always felt like that. There's always been that with us, but everyone just looks at the black person or the person of color as just sour grapes, for lack of a better term. They were just glad it wasn't them. As long as it wasn't happening to them, we can ignore it. Well, now they feel more comfortable to come out and say something. The younger generation right now, they don't really believe as much in the black and white as we were forced to believe in. And at this point, they are choosing to speak out and they're leading the way. You have got to have others, especially whites, speak out on this and create the change. That is the difference. Coaches have come out, owners themselves have come out and finally said, I'm sick of it. I don't have to pretend anymore. Other players, prominent players, have said things that where they have otherwise kept their mouths shut. So that's the difference in why we're having the movement. We have always been there as people of color.
Yep.
Now we're bringing on the white people.
I agree with you. I implore all of my white colleagues as well to join us, get into this fight with us. We definitely need their voices. I lied. One more quick question, 15 seconds apiece. I'm going to ask. God, no, the NFL this year. Who do you like in the NFL this year? We'll go
Go
with
Hey,
ahead,
you.
Greg.
Cowboys. Hey, You see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
How
what I
about them
like.
Cowboys?
Cowboy, yeah, that's what I
How
like
about
right
them
there.
Cowboys?
Now, for real. How about them Cowboys? Yeah, for real.
Poole, what about you? How about them Pats?
Well, you know what? I like in the AFC. I like the Kansas City Chiefs. I think
Yeah,
they would have won the last two Super Bowls if the Patriots had not jumped in and made that great comeback in
sure did.
Kansas City. The Chiefs would be looking at back-to-back Super Bowls. In the NFC, I think it's going to be very tough. I think the NFC South is going to be one of the toughest divisions with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think
Saints.
Carolina with Teddy Bridgewater, they're not
Yep.
going to be no flunkies. Actually, I go out and make this prediction real quick. I think nobody in the NFC South is going to have a losing record this year if they play football. But I'm kind of going to go with the Saints or somebody
Uh-huh.
from the NFC South representing the NFC taking on the Kansas City Chiefs.
I lied. One more, real quick one. You said if they play football, they're not going to play football this year, 2020, at Morehouse. Your thoughts on that, guys? No football at that fine HBCU.
You know, it's just like anything else when you have people of color trying to get things done in this tough situation. We're going to be hit the hardest. And
Yep.
I'm not surprised at all. I wouldn't be surprised if more universities, HBCUs, chose to make some very drastic changes in their athletic programs.
Ty Poole, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was a reason. It was a financial reason because technically the HBCUs just don't have the money that these big institutions, the PWIs have, the Alabamas, and they have the resources and the backing to continue to test their players. And the HBCU schools, we have to make a decision. That's going to be unfortunate because there's probably some senior that was banking on this year to actually have an opportunity to get to the HBCU combine. So it's a very tough decision, but it's a decision that had to be made.
Yeah, you talk about that HBCU combine, and the February March area did not happen for the HBCUs. Guys, it's been a great panel. Great catching up with you. Two good friends of mine, Everson Walls, Grambling State, Ty Poole, Fort Valley State. Three Super Bowls between you guys. Three Super Bowl between all three of us. You guys have three and I have none. Is that right? My math is right. 2, 1, and 0.
Congratulations, Larry.
Yeah.
Good stuff, guys. Let's go. That's right. Let's take a quick break, and we'll come back on the other side with the boat riders. Here's a message from more of the HBCU takeover.